Good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. It's actually not a good morning here. It's our second day of return to winter here in New Zealand. Absolutely grim look at the Met Service chart. There's still the lows and fronts and just a lot of misery around New Zealand. And it's pretty nasty outside. 100% cloud, well, 99% cloud cover here. 14, I guess we're up 1 degree from yesterday, 14 degrees, it's only 9 in Auckland, 1007.4 and steady on the bar, 9 knots of northerly, so I'm not sure why we're not getting a bit more warmth out of the northerly, but boy, it's nasty. Yesterday there was even hail in Auckland. We had quite a spectacular thunderstorm here at about 6 o'clock at night time, but nothing much came of it here. But, you should see the South Island. Just a lot of misery down there. Roads closed, torrential rain.
I can tell you why we're not getting it.
Why are we not getting it? All right, you want the microphone. Here you go.
Well, normally we get it because the winds are coming straight down from you guys up there in the islands, but not this time. We've got a low sitting over New Zealand. I'll cover that in a minute. But it's pulling in air from the Antarctic. And as it circulates around New Zealand, it's, even though where we are, it's northerly, just to the southwest of it, it's more southerly, and it's bringing in that very cold air. So that's what's happening. Snow down there. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's not so much the snow that's causing the problems, it's the flooding. The Clutha River is really up, and a lot of, well, right through central Otago there, Lawrence and, well, Clutha area, it's all pretty miserable. Just swollen rivers, slips, power outages, all the usual stuff that comes with really snotty weather. So you wouldn't be wanting to arrive in New Zealand at the moment, just not very pleasant at all. And I'm sure those that are up in Opua and Marsden and Whangarei and the like are still snuggled up in bed, even though with daylight saving it's almost 8 o'clock here. So, yeah, it's just pretty miserable, and it doesn't look as if it's going to get much better this week. Let's go to other parts of the world and see what's going on before we get on to the weather and try and work out what some of you are going to do that are sitting there in much more delightful conditions than we've got here. In the US, it appears that the US, in fact, the Trump administration are not going to do much to penalise Saudi Arabia for the killing of the Saudi dissident, Mr. Khashoggi. The arms sales to Saudi from America are around the $14.5 billion mark and account for about 20,000 jobs. That's the real figures. Mr. Trump always inflates them. He must be a fisherman, I guess. He's reckoned that it's 110 billion and 600,000 jobs. But whatever figure you choose, either one or the other or in between, it appears that that's more important than one man being chopped up and disposed of. So there you have it.
They do that every day.
Money talks.
Yeah.
The usual story from Afghanistan, it's just not looking very good there. The Taliban seem to have more area now than they had when it all began 20 years ago. A suicide bomber has killed more than 40 people and injured scores. They were a group of Muslim religious scholars celebrating the birthday of Muhammad. Now, you all sort of scratch your head on that one, but evidently the Taliban and affiliates of the Islamic State believe that celebrating a birthday is sacrilegious, even though it's Muhammad's. Boy, you really do have to wonder. But I guess we've stopped wondering and just pleased we don't live over that part of the world. Cricket, which reminds me of that part of the world, because New Zealand are playing Pakistan at the moment, and you've heard me scratch my head over that one too, but they played in Abu Dhabi. And it was a very exciting match, which New Zealand miraculously won. They got 6 wickets for only 24 runs at the end and won by about 6 runs. So it was a pretty exciting game. But still, I scratch my head as to why we don't put Pakistan with the rest of the really weirdos that are in that part of the world. But anyway, we don't talk about religion or politics on this show, so cricket is okay. And there you have the cricket score. Here's a funny one for David, though. The UN Chief of the Environment has had to resign after it was discovered he had spent around $500,000 on air travel and hotels in the last 22 months. He was away 80% of the time. And evidently that was a reputation risk for an organisation that is meant to be fighting climate change. So I thought that was a bit of a chuckle. All right, I don't have too much more here. There's Mrs. May over in the UK is still surviving. There's some sort of back benches organisation there that can, if they have sufficient number of MPs wanting to oust her, they can have a no confidence vote. You need 48 MPs to trigger this. That's 15% of the number of MPs that they have. And so far, only 26 have written in saying they want to oust her, but they are trying to get rid of her.
What's going to be the change?
Well, that's just it. But they want to get rid of her before the next election, evidently, these 26. 15, well, it's not even 15%, is it? It's less than about 6%. So anyway, she's still there. Prime Minister of Australia is still there too. Boy, they're getting quite stable. That must be about 3 months now that they haven't changed their Prime Minister. I tell you what, though, it's pretty strange over there. Tasmania has made it optional for parents to put the sex of a child on the birth certificate. Now, you do have to scratch your head, but this is Australia, folks. They have decided that as a, acknowledgement to the transgender society over there, that perhaps they might have quite a few of them, that it makes it confusing for the child later on if they want to switch. So they have made it optional. So there you have it. How can a parent look at a child and tell what's going to happen later on in life? I don't know, but there you have it. That's the first move in Australia, Tasmania.
How's the kid doing it? I mean, the kid just has to look down and he knows what he is.
No, well, not necessarily so. So there you have it, folks. As you can see, we're scratching for news this week because it is holiday week in America and they're more interested in which turkey is going to get a reprieve from having its head chopped off and all sorts of other things. There's really just not an awful lot going on that's anything different from anything we've had before. So I think the weather is probably more interesting. What about some news from you guys? Cool morning in Wellington. Yeah, I bet it is. Thank you. And in Suva, the other half, light rain clearing, 1013. No wind, nice and warm. Boy, he's rubbing it in, isn't he? Babao, thank you for Y2K. Max, cloudy, 1010, and easterly wind of 4 knots. We'll see because what they reported yesterday wasn't quite what you had. It looks like Babao, in fact, is one of the few that doesn't have too much cloud over it looking over your shoulder at the satellite picture here. But anyway, sounds very much nicer up there than it is here. I can see why people aren't exactly rushing to get down to New Zealand. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong spot. Oh, yes, it has got cloud. Oh, well, cloudy. You're right. Okay, well, let's get on to the weather and see what he's got for us today. Here's David.
Well, talking about turkeys, when we were cruising, we did everything we could to honor me, of course. I love my turkey on Thanksgiving, but we never could find turkeys. And here in New Zealand, turkeys are like gold. In fact, it's cheaper to buy gold than it is to buy a turkey here. So anyway, well, good morning. And our 500 millibar shortwave is still producing like a clucking hen. That's not a turkey. Upflow, that's what it's producing. That's continuing to support the complex low system that we've got over New Zealand. We've got continual troughs and waves traveling up the country. As Trish said, we've got one right now. In fact, we're expecting hail and thunderstorms today. We had a little bit of that last night, but today it's supposed to be a little more severe. In addition to all of this, our subtropical low that is southeast of Tonga. You remember that one, it's still there. It continues to percolate, and it's sending troughs northward as it has been now for nearly a week. Now, over the central cruising route, there are virtually few isobars at the moment, and that means little or no pressure gradient. So the winds, if any, are light and variable. They can be coming from virtually any direction. Now, to the west of this area, south of Sydney, we have a low developing, and it's pushing a warm front. Now, that goes up to Lord Howe Island, and then a series of troughs run north between Lord Howe and the Oz coast. Runs right along the Queensland coast, just heading north there. Lord Howe, by the way, for those of you that are new to this part of the woods, that's a spawning ground for depressions. So we always like to look at what's going on around Lord Howe. Anyway, tomorrow, the slack area over the cruising route gets a little bit more organized and an actual high forms, whereas today we just have very spread out isobars with no discernible center. Now we start to see a center, and we're looking at a big central pressure of 1017, 1017, so hardly anything at all. While over New Zealand, the North Island, a nice depression becomes organized. So remember we had a couple of low centers. Well, now it's looking like we're getting them to combine, and it looks like one single depression over the North Island. But there is a small depression also forming over the bottom of South Island, and that's bringing that horrible weather that Patricia talked about a minute ago. Now, the Tasman low, this is a different low. This is the one near Tasmania. That continues to develop, now east of Tasmania, actually. Now, 993 millibar, and it's got cyclonic flow all the way up to 25 south in the Tasman. Now, by Friday, the New Zealand low is going, that's the big one that's over the North Island. That's going to move fairly quickly to the east, and that'll probably lie near 33 and 170, 33 and 170 west. While the Tasman low gets stronger yet. Estimated central pressure looks like it's going to be about a 977. That's getting nasty now. And that's putting the entire Tasman under quite fresh winds, fresh cyclonic flow. And our little high that is to our north, that's still about 1017 millibar, and that's going to sit just to the southeast of Anisham. So those of you that have departed for New Zealand, you should probably gear your arrival by around Thursday the 29th. And that is when the next depression and cold front arrives New Zealand. Now, this trip is going to need a bit of westing if you're coming from Tonga or Fiji. You'll encounter a front before this. This will be a front prior to this one, and that'll be around the Sunday time frame. It all depends where you are as to what day that you get it. You'll know it's coming when the winds start to shift to the northwest, and then they're going to remain westerly quadrant for the rest of the trip to New Zealand. So those that are still in Newcastle, if you take off and arrive on or before Saturday, you'll basically coincide with this first frontal band. Actually, those of you that have already left Newcastle, not the ones that are sitting there now. So scratch. I'm going to rephrase all of this. It's confusing. Those of you that are gone, that left a couple of days ago, you'll be getting into New Zealand around Saturday the 24th. So right around Saturday, this coming Saturday anyhow, if you arrive then, you will be coinciding with the first frontal band. And this band is the one that those of you who are leaving Fiji will encounter in a couple of days. But anyway, it'll be over New Zealand then. And then north to northwest winds 20 to 30 in gusts for that one. Now, we'll cover the trip from New Cal for those that haven't left yet in a second. But up in the tropics now, our disturbance still remains just north of the Solomons. This tropical disturbance has been spinning around up there, has not developed into anything as yet, but it's there. We have one yacht that is going west, and we thought they were going to go through the Torres Strait, but they're going to go over the top of the Solomons. Well, they have to be careful doing that too, because that area is where these storms grew up, and that can get very, very nasty up there. So if that's your tactic, be very bloody careful on your planning if you're going to do that. So anyway, this disturbance is sending out some extended troughs, and one slides southeast over the Santa Cruz Islands, and it just raises the banks. Then it goes on to Rotuma, and Fiji is actually getting cloud from this trough as it continues to Tonga. So it's fairly broad at that point. Broad cloud also affects Nui Tukatapu, Samoa, for those up there in Samoa. We don't know of anyone right now, I don't think. And also Niue. Now, another trough lies over Tuvalu, that's up around the Funafuni area, onto Wallis and Futuna. And then we have another one that still sits over the northern Cooks, seems to be almost permanent at that point. So, briefly to Tonga now, as I said, that's being affected by a weak trough. So the usual cloud and scattered showers will be there for the group. There are some clear areas though, so it's really a mix. Pretty hot for Nuku'alofa, interesting. 29 to 30 C today. Not for me, I just don't like it that hot, and it's very humid as well, but it does drop to 19 degrees overnight. So there you go, big differential. The actuals this morning, Vavao was calm at the airport, scattered to broken cloud, very high humidity there, barometer 1012. The Hapais, also calm, scattered to broken as well, 100% relative humidity in the Hapais, 24 degree outside temperature, dew point 24 degrees. So there's your 100%. And the barometer 1011. And Tongatapu had southwest 5, scattered cloud, had two different layers on that cloud, about 1,600 feet for the lower cloud and 4,000 on the upper cloud. Barometer 1012. Winds by lunchtime, they're going to be very light, southwest to southeast in the 10 knot range. You can see there isn't much of a pressure differential, so the wind direction could be fairly variable. Tomorrow, mostly southerlies, I think, about 10 to 15. Looking at Fiji on imagery shows quite a lot of cloud moving northwest to southeast, and they're all part of the weak trough system, where the main part of it, and the main falls, if you will, rain, in other words, are more or less north of the Nuuanu. We do have returns in and about Fiji, showers here and there, in other words, but nothing to write home about. Now, due to the lack of a real pressure gradient, the winds there are expected to be pretty light as well. By lunch, I'd say mostly southerly quadrant, except, of course, by Tuira, they get the funneling effect. So there, as all of you know who have been through there, east-southeast to southeast through Tuira. But the rest of the area is pretty light. Tomorrow at lunch, expect southeasterlies virtually everywhere, 10 to 15 knots. And the passage to New Zealand now, for those that are going today or leaving tomorrow, it can be done. It's not ideal, as I've been saying, but it can be done. You'll have one front that you'll go through, fairly light, not light to moderate, nothing much to brag about that you'll have to go through. But you'll need some westing, because after that little front goes through as you're heading toward New Zealand, the winds, as they tend westerly, will stay that way. The next front will be arriving Thursday, the 29th. So anybody who is leaving, no matter whether it's Vanuatu, whether it's Fiji, Tonga, or New Caledonia. The 29th is the number you need to keep in mind, and arriving New Zealand prior to that would probably be ideal. Now that could change, but that's the way it looks at the moment. Over to Vanuatu, it looks quite nice on imagery. The trough I mentioned earlier stays to the north. All I see on or about the group and on the loop are scattered clouds up and down the chain, just not much. Again, due to the lack of any gradient, the winds are light there too. Mostly easterlies, which, as I said yesterday, is a great direction for anyone that wants to come south if you're up in the northern areas. I'd say by lunch in the 10 to 15 knot range. Tomorrow, easterlies too. From the banks to nearly Efate, that's pretty much the direction. However, we're going to see a shift from there to Anishin to the northeast. That's better yet. So light to not quite moderate northeasterlies from the Efate area, in other words, Port Vila, a little bit north of Port Vila, to Anishin, northeast. Now, Newcal, on the loop, cloud comes and goes there. The winds in the southern lagoon, easterlies with a touch of north in it. In close to Grand Terre, a little bit different southeasterlies due to the orographic effect. And by late today, the winds are going to tend northeasterly around 15 knots. And this is our lagoon area and Ile de Pan. Tomorrow, I expect northerlies for our area, and they'll be around 15 knots. But southwesterlies as you go north a bit, up towards Noumea and a little bit further there. And we'll see clouds and possible scattered showers as well. The actuals this morning, Amity Light reported east 12, Ile de Pan east-southeast at 6, Noumea east 16, and the loyalties variable north-northwest, roughly around 5 knots, but it's really all over the place there. Now, sailing north from Fiji, heading toward Funafuti or the Marshalls, you should see solid 15-knot winds southeast to east-southeast by tomorrow. And this is going to continue, but on Saturday, the winds are starting to turn northerly. So you're going to have headwinds in the not-too-distant future. I'm not picking up any major troughs for a while up there, so nothing looks too bad at that point. Now, I said I'd talk about Newcal to New Zealand, and so I really don't see a major problem in doing that, other than that date that I gave you. You're going to have, as you get going, winds that will be westerly quadrant, which that's not too common either, quite frankly, and that's due to the rather large depression that's forming in the Tasman itself. So all I can say is look at your grids and anything else that you can get on the internet and make your decision from there. I'm going to give this back to the chief, and I'm going to take one more look. I've gotten some updates, so I'm going to take one more look at that Newcal to New Zealand. So here's the boss, and I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, I'll just see if there's anybody that has any questions. There's nothing recent. Much has come up on the YIT site. A couple of boats have put their position in, but haven't given any weather information. Tumbleweed are on their way north, of course. That was yesterday, however. They had a southerly behind them, 12 knots, so that was quite pleasant. Anybody else with anything, please call. Trigger, good morning, Chris.
Just to let you know, we're on our way to Manila.
Oh, good show. All right. Well, that will tell us what's going on there. Whereabouts are you, and what are the conditions? More importantly, over.
Well, we've got
Oh, okay. You just left an hour ago. Okay. All right. Well, we'll give Alan a call in a minute. In fact, we'll call him now. Oh, well, no, David wants the microphone back. Yeah, he gives me the microphone, then wants it back. It's sort of like a Presbyterian gift. Yeah, a minute. Oh, okay, here it is.
Okay, Chief, thanks. All right, you New Cal people, you can do this. It's going to be a little bumpy, but the winds will be in a pretty good direction. Recall, I hope, if you were listening, I hope that we're talking about winds going more to the north tomorrow, and that's what we're going to do as you leave the outer reefs there. Light air, but northerly quadrant. It's going to be like that all of Thursday. Now, looking at Friday, as you continue your journey, you can do Rumline. Northwest winds you'll have on Friday. Looking at Saturday, virtually the same thing. They'll pick up to about 20 knots perhaps on Saturday. On Sunday, you might see a bit of a shift to the west, but that's okay. You just continue on your merry way. Still a good 20 knots. There could be gusts up to 25, so it will be a bit choppy in your little journey there. Continuing on to Monday, the 26th, still northwest winds. We've got the nasty little low that's in the mid-Tasman, and winds in that are 35 to 40 knots, but I don't think we'll see anything close to that. I believe you'll still be looking at about 20 knots on your Rumline passage. And looking at Tuesday, continuing, you may see northwest to west. New Zealand itself, if you happen to get down there by then, has got some fresh winds, and they'll be in the 25, 28 mark. They'll be north to northwest, coming past North Cape, Cape Reinga, into the Opua area. So that's your trip from New Caledonia. So that can be done pretty fast, even if you've got a yacht that isn't exactly a speedster. There's plenty of wind in this to push you along, I think, at your hull speed, and you should do okay on this. So let's hope nothing changes. That's the story there. Let us know what you do. And now back to the Chief.
Yeah, I was following along on Windy, actually, when you were talking, and that's on the YIT site. There's Windy on there, as you know, and yeah, I was quite surprised to see all those northwest winds, so that would actually make it quite decent. Sporty, a little bit sporty, but certainly winds in a good direction. Okay, Quintessa, Gulf Harbour. Nothing heard from Alan there on his way to Minerva. He'll meet up with Trigger at some stage. And good morning to Just Jane, an early shower there, up there, and Muscat Cove. Must be quite peaceful at Muscat Cove now with everybody pretty much gone. All right, is there anybody else with anything? Please call.
You can say something.
Nothing else heard. And Alan, if you're listening but not able to talk, Denise was pleased to get your news and is looking forward to the next update. So give us a call tomorrow. Back to David.
Yep. Pardon me. Those of you that are on your way to Minerva and get to Minerva, you want to look at your grids as well. The winds, this westerly quadrant wind is really going to take over the entire Southwest Pacific through the rest of the week into next week. So it is possible, if you plan this and are able to stand it, you could make New Zealand out of this. You'll be probably hard on the wind, even though it's going to be mostly northwest, but it is possible that you can make your break. The only bad news is along about the 27th, which is Thanksgiving, I think, the winds tend to go westerly north of New Zealand. So if you weren't able to get a little bit of westing in addition to heading west towards New Zealand, follow my Irish train of thought here, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you at that point, but it's possible. So take a look at it anyhow. Otherwise, you can wait until things get better. Minerva is a beautiful place. So there you go. Let us know what you do.
And you haven't been listening to my news because it's Thanksgiving this Thursday, the 22nd, because it happens to be the 4th Thursday of the month.
I'm sorry.
Yes, you should know better than that with your background. The 4th Thursday of the month, and there happens to be 5 Thursdays in the month this month because the first of the month was a Thursday. So there you have it. Of course, it's going to be chaos in the skies in America. They have umpteen million people going to and fro on Thanksgiving because they tend to celebrate that more than Christmas. So there'll be lots of, hopefully, decent weather for the flights to not get delayed. Okay, final call for anything for Gulf Harbour Radio. Oh, there was a couple then, so I'll need you to try again. Yeah, go ahead, Trigger. There was something about the 27th. Could you repeat what the problem was on the 27th? I think there was a front or something rather coming on the 27th. Here's the microphone to David.
No, that was more the 29th. What I was saying about the 27th is, depending upon what model we decide to look at, the winds, whereas they've been northwest, tend to be a little more westerly. So all I was saying is, if you were doing, say, a run line from Minerva and not trying to get a little bit more westing in, then you might be hard on the wind if you decided to go. That's all. Just basically is that wind shift to the west. It comes around again to the northwest, but it's that period of time. Over.
Alrighty. Actually, I thought you made it a bit garbled. In other words, you need to put in a bit of westing just to handle that little bit of west wind. If keep an eye on the gribs in case it might change, of course. All right. There was somebody else in behind Trigger. Who was that? Browser, and certainly a good signal from you now. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks very much,
Good idea. Yep, it sounds pretty good. Certainly as good usually as it gets. In fact, better than it gets usually because we normally have it on the nose.
Yeah, if nothing changes, it'll be a heck of a passage.
Yeah, as he says, if nothing changes, it will be a heck of a good passage. So, yep, have a leisurely breakfast. You'll last for a while, and yep, we'll have a chat tomorrow and the next day. All right. Cheers and good sailing to you. And I think that's about it for Gulf Harbour Radio this morning. We'll enjoy our totally miserable, grey, dismal. It looks like England in the middle of winter. It's horrible. You might want to turn around. Anyway, we'll be back again tomorrow, folks. Cheers all. Have a good day. We're clear. Well, there you are. About time, Alan, because I need to report to Denise. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to hopefully find Trigger on frequency or somebody that can give me a relay. Can anybody hear Alan on Quintessa properly? Okay, go ahead with him, Chris, and then get back to me, over. Okay, I've got all that. You came up. Thank you for that. 2156 South and 16419 West. Still motoring. Well, we did tell you it was going to be a fairly peaceful passage, and assuming all is well on board, and yep, I shall pass all that on. She did have some comments to make. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, All's good back there. Alan, over. Alright, we've got all that, and we'll leave you in peace. And I guess the motor is making life a little bit difficult there. So thanks for that, and thanks for being there, Chris. We'll hopefully find Alan tomorrow. Alright, cheers everyone. Okay, we'll see that before I forget.